The Retirement Cafe podcast, supporting your aging parents with Jackie Cleveland. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Retirement Cafe podcast with me, your host, Justin King. If you're thinking about your retirement or already retired, you're in the right place. My aim is to help you plan for and live a successful and meaningful retirement. Retirement is far more than just a financial event. It's a significant life event, a major transition, which will bring with it new challenges and opportunities. So each episode contains tips, information, and inspiration to help you feel more informed and confident about your retirement. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Hello and welcome. I'm really pleased that you have joined me for this podcast episode. This week, I'm delighted to be joined by Jackie Cleveland. Now, Jackie is the founder of Podplan, a platform that holds all the information that you might need when investigating or wanting to implement support services for an elderly loved one. Jackie's mother-in-law initiated a conversation about what support she might need and where she might be best to get that as she grew older. Due to a lack of knowledge, this conversation continued for a year or so with no results. So Jackie decided to undertake some research, and in doing this research, she felt overwhelmed by the amount of information out there and how technical it all is. So she set up Podplan. Podplan aims to have area-specific information about everything you could need to know about caring for an elderly loved one, with human support always on hand should you need to talk to someone about your options. In our conversation, Jackie and I discuss how her experience with her mother-in-law inspired the creation of Podplan, how Podplan do all the research for you, allowing you to spend more time making decisions rather than researching the options, and why preparing for later life is so important. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Jackie. Welcome to the Retirement Cafe podcast, Jackie Cleveland.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So, Jackie, you're, I think, the founder and the owner of Podplan, and I wonder whether you could tell our listeners what is Podplan and how you kind of ended up getting to this point in your life that you wanted to bring this service to the world.
Oh, well, it's been quite a journey, I can say. Perhaps if I start at the beginning, my background is in marketing and communications. So I spent 10 years working for the Sara Lee Corporation in various marketing roles. And then I had a managing director position of a PR firm. And then I stopped working altogether and raised my kids. And when I decided to come back to the workforce, I started facilitating meetings for big companies. A lot of people don't know what that actually involves, but I would work with companies like Nestle and Unilever, and I would chair meetings for them to help ensure that their marketing teams or their management teams, when they got together to discuss a serious topic, that they ended those meetings with a resolution and they were able to move forward. So really, I think my background is all about taking complicated subjects and finding a way to communicate them simply and clearly. And that really was a very useful skill when back in 2017, I was looking for some information to help my mother-in-law, actually. So at the time, she was in her 70s. She was a widow living alone in her family home. And as you'd expect, she started to have some questions about whether or not she should move house, whether where she was living was fit for purpose for her for the next 20 years, potentially, of her life. And we started to have conversations as a family over the Sunday lunch table, as you can imagine. You know, what should she do? Could we do something with her house to make it better equipped for her? Did she need to go through the trauma of moving? But what I found was happening for us is because we didn't have any really concrete information, we basically went round and around and around. And a couple of months turned into probably a year, and we weren't any further forward in the conversation. So one day I said, look, let me do a little bit of research. Let's get some information. And then together we can sit down and look at the options and see if we can map a way forward from there. And so that's what I set out to do. I did what probably everybody would do. I jumped on the internet and I started looking at adapting home, retirement homes, different types of retirement village, and I basically discovered that there are so many fantastic websites full of really rich, really valuable information, but in my case, it was just overwhelming. It was like the more I looked, the further down the rabbit hole I went. I was discovering acronyms that I didn't understand. I really didn't understand what sheltered accommodation versus extra care housing was. And everywhere I went took me further into this labyrinth of information. And every now and again, I would come across something and I'd look up and I'd think, you know, wow, I didn't know about this particular thing I discovered. Does anybody else know about this? People should know about this.
So your mother-in-law, you kind of wasn't ill at the time, or she was
No.
just kind of thinking about, well, is she still with you? Is she still around?
Yes.
Yeah,
She's actually
fantastic.
living in a retirement village now. Yes.
Wonderful. So, and is she close to where you live, or is she some way
She's
away?
about 40 minutes away, actually.
Okay.
About
So
40
she's
minutes.
kind of having this kind of general conversation of, well, I don't know whether, I'm a widow. I don't know whether I want to live in this property for the rest of my life. Where shall I go? What's the right time to go? Should I move earlier rather than later? All those kind of conversations that people start to think of. So you weren't just kind of solving an immediate need. It was planning.
It was planning, exactly. And actually, a lot of it was triggered from her friends. Her friends were moving. People were there started to be, I wouldn't say a mass exodus, but a mass conversation about whether or not where she was living or where they were living was going to be right for quite a number of years to come.
Right.
So really it was that experience that one day I just looked up and I thought, oh, this shouldn't be so hard. I wished back then that there was something I could go to and say, look, just tell me the main things I need to think about. Please tell them to me in a way I can understand. I don't need too much, but I need enough information to be able to have an informed, sensible conversation and to try and make the very best decision that we could with her as a family. Yeah. And that was really the essence behind the business. And so back in 2018, we didn't start with a membership, which is what I'm chatting to you about today. We started putting together bespoke documents for families where we researched the services that were available locally to help people. So everything from food providers to local transport options, right the way through to exactly what number do you dial when you're trying to get help from the local authority, because finding that within some of the local authority, the council websites was very difficult. We put all the information together in the key areas that families were likely to need information about at some point, and we produced those as bespoke documents. And we did a lot of that. A lot of that work it was referred to us from accountants who had clients who were sort of at that stage of life, some financial advisors, in fact. But the ambition all the way along was not to be producing these one-off individual reports, if you like. It was to produce or create a service that could make our knowledge much more accessible to people all across the UK. And that's what we think we've done now with Podplan membership.
Right. So just going back to your mother-in-law, so once you'd gathered all this information, I mean, presumably that was kind of hours of research and improving your knowledge. What was what was that conversation next? Where did you go? What were your next steps there?
Well, really, we had to talk to her about what the options were. So option A, of course, was to adapt her home. to make some changes. There's a big staircase involved. Did she want to have the building work done? Was she happy to have those changes made to the home that she lived in for many, many years? We totted up the costs that would be involved in that and had a chat to her about that. Was really option A. Do you want to do that? Do you want to stay there and understand that her neighbours around her were moving, so she wasn't having quite the same community there? So that was option A. Option B was, well, if you were to move, what's important to you in a property? So for her, she wanted a garden. It was very important to her. It didn't have to be a very big garden, but that's what she wanted. So in order to downsize, we then needed to find a property that had a garden, but of course, also we wanted to have a care provision for her, so that if we couldn't be with her, then we wanted to know that there were services locally that we could call upon to help her. And so that's why we ended up with a retirement property. But she had to move out of London to go to a retirement village that had a bungalow with a garden, which was most important for her.
Wow. So, and so there's a point then of great planning there, thinking ahead. And then, of course, the other kind of, I suppose, pain points is the sudden need, isn't there? The sudden kind of, something someone gets ill. And in my experience, a lot of the clients that we work with, they're close family and they've got great relationships with their children and the younger generation, I suppose, but they are separate. I mean, they are living in different towns. They are, in fact, sometimes different countries. I just thinking of one client, their immediate children are one's got a family settled in Australia and one's got a family settled in America. So, if when mum and dad suddenly need, or mum or dad, or maybe the last survivor suddenly needs help, that's challenging, isn't it?
It is. And that's actually why we wanted to have a membership that was available online, because no matter where you are in the world, the information that you need is still the same. So in your example of maybe someone's living in Australia and they need to find a care service for a parent who's living in England, you need to be able to know what you're looking for. You need to understand how care services are rated, how one is accredited, one may be better than another, what to look for. And that's the knowledge that we house inside the membership. And I'm very passionate about helping people to learn about all of these types of key pieces of information before they need it. And that's what we do with our members. We serve our members by drip feeding, in a sense, key important information to gradually build up their knowledge base. So when they reach that point where they need to find a care service, they feel very confident, they're equipped with the knowledge they need, they understand how to select one service over another, they know where to go on the internet to be able to find an actual local service, and they're able to take it from there.
Right. So if you, I mean, again, it doesn't really matter whether you're in Australia or in Aberdeen. I mean, we're in Christchurch in Dorset, and if you're based in Aberdeen, you're not going to know the local services, are you? You're not going to know who the care home services are. Also, the other experience I have with clients is that they're just not aware of the process that they need to go through. What help is available? What is this social services assessment that can be made? What are things like continuing healthcare? If I've got dementia, can I get help from the state? Will they take my assets away from me? What am I allowed to claim? All those types of things. It is confusing, isn't it?
It is confusing, and actually there was a great piece of research that the UK's Local Government Association conducted. It was actually back in 2019, but I don't think the results would change today. And they were researching people's understanding about social care and did they understand what it was. And actually 70% of people thought that social care was going to be provided by the NHS, that somehow social care and the NHS were intertwined. They didn't understand that it was essentially two separate provisions, two separate sets of services that could be accessed by a family, either on behalf of an elderly parent or by the elderly parent themselves.
Wow. Wow. So, so obviously, you've got this wonderful website, My Podplan. Tell me what do people get when they join up?
Yes, sure. So essentially the members have they have three benefits. So the first is information. So what we've done is we've taken this vast knowledge bank that we have of how you find local services and which websites you go to, really pinpointing information. And we've arranged it on the inside for members according to concerns, because we know that people know what they're worried about, but they don't know the resources that exist to help them resolve those worries. So that's the first thing. When members go in, there's a dashboard and it's full of worries. I am worried about my mum's safety at home, and you click on that link and then it takes you through to the resources that are available to help, and it shows you very simply why they're good, where you can buy them, in 10 minutes or less. We've put it in bite-sized chunks. So information is the key aspect, really the first key aspect of membership. The second is education. So as I mentioned, I'm really passionate about trying to build people's knowledge base before they need to draw upon it. So to do that, we have video interviews with various product and service providers that we show to our members, not so that they dash off and go and buy or engage the service that they've just watched a video about, but so that they are aware of the existence of that service and that they understand what the circumstances would look like when that service would be useful for them in their circumstance. So we do that. Members receive newsletters from us where we highlight changes in social care and really speak in very simple language. This means for your mum or dad, you should look at this, and we take them through to a link. And there's also a community forum built inside the membership as well. So members can interact with each other all across the country and get feedback about local services from a user's perspective. Everything from a handyman who specializes in helping older people in their home with some basic DIY tasks, right through to care service providers. So that's inside the membership as well. And the third aspect, of course, is support, because I found when I was trying to find information, I would have done anything just to have someone that I could pick up the phone to or send a quick query to and say, look, I think I'm understanding what I'm reading. Have I got this right? Yes or no. So our members have access to us 24/7 to be able to do that.
Wow, fantastic. And I definitely think the 45 to 55-year-old with elderly parents who are remote do feel a little bit adrift in this world. When suddenly they've got, and especially, obviously we're recording this 23rd of February, and we're all still in lockdown. That's making it even more challenging, isn't it? To first of all, we know that community services are under significant pressure, and it's not the same. You can't just pop round and fix the problem, can you? At the moment,
no. It's tough. It's a really tough time. If you add the circumstances of today on top of the emotional difficulties, the challenges when you find yourself caring for your parent rather than the other way around, it's tough. And I believe people want some help. And that's what I hope we will be providing for them.
Absolutely. So uh, where do people find out, about what you're doing, and how do they, gather more information? And what are the first steps if anyone's thinking, oh, I've got to have this, probably should have this kind of conversation with mum or mum and dad, or, maybe any elderly relative, of course.
Yeah, I think the first thing to do is to take a look at the website, www.mypodplan.co.uk. That's where really the bones of the membership are laid out. But of course, you can come through and ask any questions. It's quite a big decision. Our service is new. I totally understand that there'd be lots of questions about what do I get, what do I not get, and so any questions members or potential members can come through to me. They just need to email Jackie, which is JACKIE at mypodplan.co.uk. And I have done a lot of behind the scenes tours to show people what they get. A lot of Zoom screen shares. Let me show you behind the curtains. Let me show you what's inside the membership, so that they can feel really reassured when they join us. And of course, we don't tie anyone in for any long-term commitments. Members can cancel with 2 clicks of their mouse at any time. We're not looking to secure people forever, but we would love them to stay with us so that we can really build up that level of knowledge that ultimately is going to make them feel much more equipped for whatever the future holds for them and their mums and dads.
So what about, obviously we're talking about children dealing with this. What about I was chatting to Kirsty Woodard the other week about people without children, and they're sitting there maybe listening to this thinking, well, we have some clients without children, and that I can imagine. Well, I know that they are thinking about, that they get to the late 80s, 90s, and they're a little bit frailer and less able, and who will they be able to rely on?
Well, it's a very good question. And funnily enough, the membership is a new service for us. We only launched it at the beginning of January, but already we've had quite a lot of inquiries exactly like that. The older person saying, well, hey, I'd like this information for myself. And my response has been, we'd love to help you. That's what we're here for. The information inside the membership is universal. It is designed to help someone who is older to navigate the stages of later life and find the services that can help them. Inside, we do refer to, the terminology we use is about your mum and dad or to help your mum and dad. But if they're happy to overlook that, they will certainly still have a lot of value found inside the membership.
Yeah. And then I suppose it comes the other way, doesn't it? Because we're obviously talking that children like yourself were faced with these kind of difficult conversations and doing some great planning. But it could be the other way around. It could be the mums and dads going, look, actually, kids, you probably need to get a hang of this, because at some point in time, you don't know when illness is going to befall us, and you're going to need to step in.
Yeah. Well, of course, there's a lot of information that is required from a estate planning perspective, from financial planning perspective, and I would say actually that was one of the aha moments I had when I was on my journey. Who knew that a Society of Later Life Advisor accreditation was so important, that was so valuable for a financial advisor? I had no idea, and my friends had no idea what that meant, what value that brought, and why a SOLA accredited financial advisor is really someone that you can feel confident is equipped to help you with these later life matters. So all that information is inside the membership.
Right, fantastic. So I suppose the big question, Jackie, what does it cost?
So it's £10 a month is the ongoing fee. We have a joining fee. The joining fee normally will be £199, but at the moment we've just launched the membership. So we have a founding member offer because we're really trying to attract members onto the inside. It's £25 is the joining fee. And if this episode of your podcast goes out after the 28th of February, which is when the joining member finishes, if your listeners use the code CAFE, CAFE, they'll have a discount on the joining fee. And of course, then it's just £10 a month.
Fantastic. No, I'd have thought that that definitely represents good value. And I think for anyone, as you said, they can go and try it out, and they can see whether they enjoy the content and whether they find it's very useful. And well, that's in this lockdown world, that's not much more of a price of a cup of coffee anyway, which most of us can't buy anyways.
I think of it as a cappuccino with your mum and dad.
Absolutely, and I definitely can think that this is a two-way street to share that information, whether it's the children listening to this and going, you know what, this would be really useful, and I haven't got the time to do all the research to find all the kind of stuff that I need to find out. I mean, I'm just thinking of so many different scenarios that we've come across recently, from sudden dementia, or a death of a partner, or someone wanting respite care, or I had a power of attorney contact me this week and saying, can we invest all mum's money because she's just gone into a care home, and was quite surprised for me to say, well, no, you can't. And again, I'm not going to go into the ramifications and the reasons why, but as with everybody, and everyone's individual position and personal circumstances are different. And that's why a plan does need to be bespoke. And of course, the first port of call is to be well equipped with the information.
Yes, absolutely right. I mean, it is true that adage, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. That is absolutely the case in later life subject matters. And I think because it is such an emotional subject, it's a difficult subject to wrap your mind around. It's easier to avoid it. And that's why so many people feel the stress building up, and they are really unprepared when something happens. And you hope that it won't, but we know that 50% of people over the age of 80 fall over at least once a year. That it's the highest reason for emergency hospital admissions in the UK are falls, elderly people falling over. And we also know that only about 35% of those people will return to full health. So that means that pretty much if you're the adult son or daughter and you're at work, or maybe you're retired but you're busy, it only takes that 1 second, that one fall over, that one phone call, and you are plunged into an entirely new world. You are looking for home care, you're looking for home adaptations, you're trying to find wheelchairs. It is a really big and difficult circumstance. But if you already know a little bit about what to do in that circumstance and how to choose services and what's available and what perhaps the local authority will pay for, then you're in a much better place to start that journey with your mum and dad.
Yeah. And so often, of course, it isn't, and people don't realize, do they, that there is an awful lot of services that are available, even if you're going to pay for them yourself. There are services available which can just give you the knowledge about how to go and buy the services. Because if you've never bought them before, why should you know how to go and get home help or domiciliary care or whatever it may be? I mean, we're just not experts in stuff that we don't use very often.
No, there's no later life 101 education service, and you really don't know it. I didn't know it. Even monitoring devices and services, that in itself was just a minefield, understanding what all of those different brilliant products do, but in which circumstance they would be right for a particular person. It's tough. It's tough to know.
So it's a bit like it's It's running a fire drill, isn't it?
Yeah,
So, you hope that it's not going to happen, but it doesn't mean you don't set the fire alarm off once a month and kind of go, if you've got a young family or you've got an office block, you kind of go, look, if the fire alarm goes off, first of all, we're going to test it. And then do we all know what we're doing?
exactly.
And
Exactly.
if you never use it, then it's not really wasted. It's a bit, I often think, I often talk of the adage of your house insurance. It's the only thing that you happily pay for every year on the hope that you will never get any money back from.
Yeah.
You hope it's a waste of money.
Yeah.
And if I spend 70 years paying for fire insurance on my house and never get a penny back, I'll be happy. But it doesn't mean I wouldn't have the fire insurance, does it? It sounds like very much a similar thing. Is that this is a little bit of an insurance policy against a heightened stress time. Not only will you be dealing with some emotional stress, probably because a loved one is suddenly poorly, or something has happened and you've got to step in. But if you can just open up the plan and just go, okay, well, we were expecting one day this to have happened. Doesn't look like the plan is totally up to date, because it never can be, of course, and as you're updating it daily, but we've done most of the work already. And therefore we now know what to do. That's got to reduce the emotional stress significantly.
Exactly. And it buys a bit of time, if you start looking early, you don't have to be studying, the difference between a care home and a nursing home for hours each week, but just a little bit, a couple of minutes each week over time really does build a valuable knowledge bank.
Or, as I say, a trusted source that you can go to and go, right, well, I know the information's there. So, and they're keeping it up to date. It's not up to me to keep up to date. So I can dial in and check in, and also pick up the phone or drop an email to someone who knows what's going on and go, look, this is where I'm at. What do you think?
Exactly.
Brilliant. Well, Jack, it's been fantastic chatting to you this afternoon. Thank you for your time, and great work with Podplan. We'll put all those links into the show notes. Where can people get a hold of you if they want to know more?
Drop me an email. It's probably the easiest. Come straight to me at jackie@mypodplan.co.uk.
Fantastic. Thank you for your time this afternoon.
That's okay. Great. Thanks so much, Justin. Thank you for having me.
Thanks once again to Jackie for joining me today. To find out more about Podplan, check out the show notes on our website at theretirementcafe.co.uk, where you'll find some useful links. As ever, if you've enjoyed this episode, please do leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. I want to take this opportunity to thank Grootey11, who recently wrote a review. He gave it the title Not Just for Retirees and said, I started listening after I ran out of other podcasts on the off chance that there might be some bits of information that would be of use in the future. I've been pleasantly surprised at the amount of content that is useful for people still decades away from retirement. It's really worth listening to, and for anyone interested in personal finance and the path to FI. Thank you, Grouse11. I really do appreciate you taking the time to share your thoughts, and I'm pleased you're finding the podcast informative. Did you know that all the podcasts are available to listen to or watch on my YouTube channel? If you prefer to watch my conversations, simply head to YouTube and search for Justin King MFP. To get in touch and share your thoughts or suggest a guest, you can find me on Twitter at Justin King CFP, or email me at hello@theretirementcafe.co.uk. So until next time, this is Justin King helping you feel more informed in your retirement.